I'm Raf Keustermans. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Plumbee. We are a social casino company startup based in London. We're now 60 people, and you might know us from Mirrorball Slots and Mirrorball Bingo on Facebook and mobile. I was working in advertising at the beginning of my career. I started in the late 90s, probably giving my age away now. I was actually working as a marketing consultant for different companies. I ended up at a startup in Belgium called Mr. Bookmaker, where I was a marketing consultant hired to run CRM, look into database marketing. So I was there working a couple of months, and then the company actually got acquired by Unibet. And then after a couple of conversations, they asked me to join them in London. And that's how I started in 2005, working for Unibet, moving to London, together with quite a few other people who also since then have been making their moves in the industry. And then from there, I worked 4 more years at Unibet, moved to electronic arts, video games, from there to Playfish, social games. Worked a little bit as a consultant, and then I started with my 2 co-founders, Plumbee. So that's a little bit in a nutshell the story of how I rolled into the gaming industry. A bit over 3 years now. Feels sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. So yeah, how I ended up doing what I'm doing. If there's 3 co-founders, someone needs to be the CEO, I guess. And I think my other co-founder is definitely a product person, so he's our chief product officer. My other co-founder was experienced engineering manager, so he's our CTO. So yeah, I think I was left becoming the CEO. I have a more commercial background, business development, marketing. Also had a couple of good contacts with investors. It also helps. So that's why I think I became the CEO and still am. Plumbee, as I said earlier, social casino company. We make free-to-play games on Facebook, mobile platforms, also tablets. We make slots games, bingo, who knows what else in the future. There's quite a few other categories that are interesting. We launched our first game, Mirrorball Slots, on Facebook in March 2012. And then we moved from there to mobile. We then started working on bingo about a year ago. And the product is now live on Facebook, Mirrorball Bingo, moving to tablets as well in the coming months. We raised so far almost $18 million. Our first round was from a French fund called ID Invest. And then last year in December 2013, we raised our Series B 14 million round, which was led by Endemol. So Endemol is a strategic investor, giving us a lot of cash, which is good, but also obviously they have a lot of expertise and experience in the entertainment industry at large. They have obviously a lot of great brands. We have a couple of those. We have Deal or No Deal integrated in our bingo application. So yeah, we have a slots game, Mirrorball Slots, on Facebook, on mobile tablets. We have bingo, Mirrorball Bingo, with Deal or No Deal Room, which is also now on Facebook and soon on mobile and tablets. And we're keeping an open mind as to what the future might bring, other categories, other products. So yeah, that's where we are right now. It's important, I think, in our industry, probably in every industry, but definitely in our industry, to really focus. I think it's a mistake to make too many games and try to do 20 little things halfway decent. We try to focus on having a couple of products and really focusing most of our resources, both people, talent, brains, cash, on those, and try to do it really, really well. So we are based in London. We have 2 guys in Australia, but 60 people are all in London. But actually the UK is quite a small market for us. Most of our players are from the US, 60-65%. Australia is also a big market for us, good 10%, and then Canada, New Zealand, and then the rest is Europe, a bit of Latin America. So those are our key markets right now. We expect for bingo that it might be a little bit more popular in Spanish-speaking markets because of the products, but yeah, still the US is the key focus for us. So we always focus from the beginning on quality, and I know that's hard to quantify, but we really try to make our products outstanding in terms of how they look, how they feel, how they play, user experience, user interface. Also, a lot of the people who make the games really have a heart and a passion for the games. That also means that for Plumbee, probably we spend more time and therefore more money on each individual game or product or feature, but we think that it also adds depth and this feeling of quality that I think is hard to describe, that I think it resonates with players. We have less slot games than our competitors. We have now 14 games live, hopefully 15 in the next couple of weeks. If you compare with some of our competitors, 40, 50 or more, but I think our games are richer, deeper, more fun. if I can say. Obviously I'm biased. But we do see that it resonates. People have been playing the same games for years and years and still enjoying them and giving us positive feedback and good vibes. So I think, yeah, that's definitely our focus, quality of our games. Well, in social casino it's getting very saturated. There's right now hundreds and hundreds of slots and bingo and poker games on all the platforms. So there's a lot of noise. Some of these products are really good and also high quality from good companies, but there's also a lot of not so good games that makes it hard. I mean, I think from a player point of view, I think it's sometimes hard to see and find out what is a good game versus what is something that someone just tried to see if they can make a bit of money with it. So that makes it hard. It's hard to break through the noise. You have to spend a lot more in marketing today than it was a couple of years ago. And also obviously from a consumer point of view, sometimes having hundreds of games to choose from in one category makes it not necessarily better. I think it might make it more confusing. But also what we see is that the top companies like Caesars, for example, have been quite aggressive in M&A. There's definitely an element of consolidation. Caesars alone acquired 4 companies. They're now probably going to do $500 million in revenue this year. So yeah, the industry is definitely growing up, becoming more mature, and also that makes it a bit more challenging, but also more interesting for smaller companies like us. I think obviously the transformation from web, Facebook to mobile and tablets, I think that's something that is not just in our category, but across the globe in all categories. And also specifically in social casino, what we're seeing right now is more and more brands, and I think it's also related to the saturation of the market. If you have a category with hundreds and hundreds of products that are fairly similar at first glance, I think brands can help differentiate and stand out of the crowd. So I think that's what we're seeing right now. A lot of the big players are licensing big brands, and also I think our relationship with Endemol will also help us, I think, to get access to brands that are globally well known and loved, like Deal or No Deal and others. So brands, I think, is definitely a key trend that we're seeing, which I think in the next months and years is going to become even bigger. Yeah, fragmentation and saturation, I mean, those go hand in hand. At least for a new company right now, unless you have access to millions and millions of cash and a huge amount of talent to work with, I think it's going to be very hard to break into the space. We've been going for 3 years. I think we were also lucky with the timing to a degree, that we were one of the first 10 or 15 companies in this space. So we had the luxury of building up a user base, a brand, a good product, before the market became very, very hard for newcomers to enter. So that's definitely a challenge. I think it's hard to break into this space right now as a new company unless you have huge amounts of capital available. You can always do better. Obviously, it's still a young industry. So sometimes in the media, specifically in tabloids and so on, some rumors or noise about regulation. Are social casino games good for society? What about the children? How much money are people spending? And I think these questions are valid, and I think obviously it would be a mistake as an industry to just ignore those, but I think it's important to, one, realize that, first of all, not because someone has a perceived, not because there's a perception that there is a problem, there is necessarily a problem. So I think it's also looking at the data. Do we have a problem? For example, in case of underage players, most of the companies have less than 1% players under the age of 21. In case of Plumbee, the average player is 52, it's almost the exact opposite. It's talking with the media, with politicians, with regulators, addressing the concerns, making sure that, one, there is an element of education, I think that needs to happen. But also there is probably something that as an industry where areas that maybe so far we haven't really spent enough time and energy on, that I think it's important that we keep an open mind, that we are open in our conversations with people who have concerns, even if they are sometimes perceived. That's also why Plumbee is one of the founders of the founding companies of the ISGA, the International Social Games Associations, together with heavyweights like Caesars and IGT and Zynga and so on, to actually create a forum, to create a voice for the industry, to talk with regulators, media, politicians, and everyone who actually is involved in these questions and debates. I would say right now is the highlight. I mean, being a founder of a startup, I mean, it doesn't really get better. It's a bit of a roller coaster. Obviously, not every day is going to be as pleasant, but that's part of it. I mean, the idea that you can shape your own future, that you have an amazing team, very inspiring co-founders, investors to deal with. I mean, that's as good as it gets. I mean, I would not change it for any other career working for someone else. So yeah, I think right now is the highlight of my career for sure. Sometimes what we hear from specifically engineers or artists is that they don't really have a deep passion for slots games or bingo games. Like typically in game studios you get a bunch of people who love the game they're making because it's a shooter game or a racing game. And obviously you have a smaller percentage, specifically engineers and artists and game designers, who have the same passion for slots or bingo. So I think it's try to not just focus on the slots games and the reels, try to focus on all the interesting challenges that bring, like the huge amounts of data that they generate and what you can do and what you can learn from that. The technical challenges, how do you create amazing cross-platform experiences between Facebook and Android and Google and Amazon, and how do you actually make that seamless and fun? How do you deal with device fragmentation? Android, there's so many different devices with different screen sizes, different levels of quality. How do you still make sure that there is a fun game that works across all these devices? There's a lot of interesting technical data science challenges, art challenges that I think go above and beyond how fun is it to have this slots game. Am I really deeply in love with slots games or bingo games or poker? I think that sometimes people need to see a little bit through the actual product and try to see a little bit what's behind it, like the culture of the company, as I said, technical and other challenges. Obviously our own games, Mirrorball Slots and Mirrorball Bingo, I think we have very good games, very fun games. From our colleagues and competitors, I would call out My Vegas, from our friends from Play Studios, which is a very good game, but also they have the added element of that you can actually win real prizes, real incentives that you can then collect if you go to a land-based casino in Vegas or Atlantic City, which adds an extra element to it, which is quite fun. There's a lot of good games out there right now. So High Five Games is doing some amazing things. There's almost some smaller companies also doing some interesting things. From time to time, sports betting, a little bit of poker, not for huge amounts, and the lottery. Sometimes Euro Millions, if the hype gets to me sometimes, but I'm not really a regular gambler, no.